Hi, I'm Emily from the Bowen Branch Library, and welcome back to our middle grade reader book club. We are working our way through the Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater with permission from Scholastic, so thank you very much, Scholastic. We hope you've been enjoying our series so far. Welcome to chapter 40 through 43. Puck. As Finn predicted, the storm pounds Thisbe for a night and a day, and by the end of that rainy day we're able to retreat back to our house. I'm relieved because I'd rather run barefoot in the Scorpio races than try to sleep in Beach's narrow, ham-scented bed with Gabe again. Tommy's eager to return home because he left his kabalushka in the care of his family across the island, and he's not certain how well they're doing. I think that I'd like to meet Tommy's family, if they are the sort who wouldn't mind having a water horse left in their care while Tommy ventures out to save the neighbours. It's not exactly like asking your mother to put out a tin of chopped meat for your cat while you're gone. I know I must have met Tommy's parents at some point. I must have met everyone on Thisbe at some point, but I cannot accurately place them in my head. In my imagination, Mr. and Mrs. Falk both have Tommy's brilliant blue eyes and his lovely lips. I also grant him some siblings while I'm at it. 2 brothers and a sister. The sister is homely. The brothers are not. By evening we are ready to strike out. The boys are so manly that they have to ride in Tommy's car again, but I make a hasty bridle by looping Dove's lead line back through her halter, creating reins so that I can ride her bareback after them. The door to the house slams, and a moment later I realise Peg Grattan has come out to stand by me. Her arms crossed, she watches silently as I curry off Dove's shoulders. "Thank you again," I say finally, because I need to say something. She doesn't reply, just lifts her eyebrows like a nod without a head movement. There's a lot of people who don't want you on that beach. I try not to feel angry at her. I told you I wasn't going to be talked out of it. Peg laughs then, a sound like a crow cawing. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about men who don't want a girl in the race. My mouth says, oh, but my voice doesn't. You just watch yourself. Don't let anyone tighten your girth for you. Don't let anyone else feed your mare. I nod, but I'm thinking that it's easy to imagine someone being annoyed by me riding, but harder to imagine someone being willing to do anything nefarious about it. I ask, what about Sean Kendrick? I look at Peg Grattan and she is smiling a small secret smile at me, as masked as she was beneath the bird headdress. You sure don't like to do anything the easy way, do you? I didn't know, I started truthfully, that it was the hard way when I started on it. Peg plucks a piece of straw out of Dove's mane. It's easy to convince men to love you, Puck. All you have to do is be a mountain they have to climb or a poem they don't understand. Something that makes them feel strong or clever. It's why they love the ocean. I'm not sure that is why Sean Kendrick loves the ocean. Peg continues, when you're too much like them, the mystery's gone. No point seeking the grail if it looks like your teacup. I'm not trying to be sought. She purses her lips. All I'm saying is that you're asking them to treat you like a man, and I'm not sure either of you want that. There's something discomforting about the way she says, though I'm not sure if it's because I agree or disagree with it. I think of Ake Paulson backing his horse away from me, and the combination of her words, and the memories sit uneasily in my chest. I just want to be left alone, I say. Like I said, Peg replies, you're asking to be treated like a man. She makes a step out of her fingers laced together to help me up. Then she pats Dove's rump so that Dove will move to follow Tommy's car as it leaves. I turn around as we go. Peg's still standing there watching us, but she doesn't wave. My spirits slowly lift as we put distance between us and the Grattans' white house. After so much time cooped up, the air feels clean and well washed. The island itself looks like our kitchen. Too much stuff, not enough tidying. There's bits of wooden fence thrown far away from fence lines, shingles and roof tiles resting in hedgerows, branches from faraway trees abandoned in the middle of fields. Sheep wander freely across the road, which isn't so unusual, but I spot some glossy mares grazing outside of their fence as well. The watery evening light is like a cautious smile through tears. There's no sign of the kabalushka that came up out of the storm, and I wonder if they've all climbed back into the sea again. For the moment, the island seems so utterly peaceful, unmarked by trouble and horses and weather. I think we'd have entirely different tourists if this were the face Thisbe wore all the time. Only I know this isn't the real Thisbe. The real Thisbe starts again at sunup tomorrow. Just a little over a week to go until the races. I don't think I'm ready. It's hard to imagine that our story will end the way I told Finn. Good luck doesn't seem to be something that holds the hands of the Connollys these days. But when I get home, Finn's face is shining and joyful. Behind him in the kitchen is Puffin the barn cat. Her tail is bitten off and ugly, and she's very indignant and sorry for herself, but she's also very alive. This island is a cunning and secretive thing. I can't say what it has planned for me. Chapter 41. Sean. That evening, as the last light is fading, I do as my father used to and strike off across the fields to the beach that faces west. As the sun shines low and red across the water, I wade into the ocean. The water is still high and brown and murky with the memory of the storm, so if there's something below it, I won't know it. But that's part of this, the not knowing, the surrender to the possibilities beneath the surface. It wasn't the ocean that killed my father in the end. The water is so cold that my feet go numb almost at once. I stretch my arms out to either side of me and close my eyes. I listen to the sound of water hitting water, the raucous cries of the terns and the guillemots in the rocks of the shore, the piercing, hoarse questions of the gulls above me. I smell seaweed and fish and the dusky scent of the nesting birds on shore. Salt coats my lips, crusts my eyelashes. I feel the cold press against my body. The sand shifts and sucks out from under my feet in the tide. I'm perfectly still. The sun is red behind my eyelids. The ocean will not shift me and the cold will not take me. Everything about me is exactly the same as it was 500 years ago, when Thisbe priests would stand in the frigid dark sea and give themselves over to the island. I try to make the inside of me as still as the outside. I have no more care than one of the gulls circling above me, thinking only of how to survive in this moment and then the next. I whisper to the sea 3 times. Once I ask that Corr will be meek and good, so they'll have no reason to use the bells and the magic he so despises. But twice I whisper for him to be despicable, so they'll beg for me to come back. Chapter 42. Puck. The island's mad. Because I rode Dove back from Hastaway the evening before, I give her the morning off and tell her to eat some expensive hay. I give her a bit of the grain too, not too much because she'll just get ill on it, and leave her behind to go watch the training and take notes. I don't have any more November cakes, and we weren't home to bake anything, so I have to settle for a pocketful of stale biscuits. It doesn't take me long to realise that Thisbe has completely changed now that the festival is done and the storm has passed. Aside from the stray shingles and branches, it looks as if the wind brought people and tents. The road from Scarmouth clear onto the cliffs is lined with tents and tables of every sort. Where I'd helped Dory Maud set up her booth is now a city of booths, all populated by locals trying to seduce tourists with their stuff. Some of them are the vendors who Brian Carroll and I saw while making our way through the festival, but some of them are new. The booth selling riders' colours, the hasty and incredibly tacky paintings of the race favourites, the mats to sit on to watch the race from the cliffs without getting your backside wet. I feel suddenly and alarmingly like the races are very close. All at once I realise that it's only days before I will walk Dove down to the beach, and I feel completely unprepared. I don't know anything about this. Nothing at all. I'm resurrected from my funk by Joseph Barringer, who dances around behind me singing some poorly rhymed and slightly dirty song about my odds and my skirts. I don't even wear skirts, I snap at him. Especially, he says, in my daydreams. I had thought for some reason that being one of the riders in the Scorpio races would get me a bit more respect, but it's ever surprising, the things that don't change. I ignore him, which helps a little, if only because it feels familiar, and thread through the people toward Dory Maud's booth, avoiding Puddles and Joseph as best as I can. I can hear the commotion from the beach already, even among all the people poking in the booths. There's something about the sound that seems unlike the normal noise of the training, and I'm not sure if it's just because everyone is down on the beach at once as the races draw close. Puck! Dory Maud spots me before I spot her. She is festively dressed in a traditional scarf and rubber boots, a combination that is at once ridiculous and, unfortunately, extremely representative of Thisbe. Puck! She says again, this time shaking a string of November bells at me, an action that attracts the attention of at least 2 others near me. She carefully lays the bells down on the table in front of her so that the price tag is showing. Hi, I say. There's a great shout from the direction of the beach, which I find oddly unsettling. Where's your horse? Dory Maud asks. Or do you mean to practice out there without her? I rode her back from Hastaway yesterday evening. She's taken a break and I'm going to watch from the cliffs. Dory Maud eyes me. It's a strategy, I said crossly. I'm devising strategy. Not all of racing is riding, you know. I know nothing about it, Dory Maud replies, except that Ian Privet's horse likes to come on strong from the outside at the very end, if it's anything like the last year he rode him. I remember what Elizabeth said before about Dory Maud gambling on horses. Mum once told Dad that vices were only vices when looked at through the frame of society. I see a possible ally in Dory's vice. What else do you know? Dory Maud reaches up to better secure a bit of the flapping canvas tent, and then she says, I know that I'll tell you more if you come back after and mind the booth for an hour while I go get lunch. I regard her darkly. Again, it's not something I thought I'd have to do as a rider in the races. I'll think about it. What's that commotion anyway, do you know? Dory Maud looks enviously down at the road to the beach. Oh, it's Sean Kendrick. Interest prickles in me. What about Sean Kendrick? They're taking his red stallion down there. Mutt Malvern and some of the other boys. With Sean? Dory Maud looks wistful then that she's trapped in the booth instead of down seeing the action. I didn't see him. Talk's going around that he won't be in the races, that he and Benjamin Malvern fought over the stallion and he quit. Kendrick, I mean. Quit? Are you deaf? Dory Maud rings the bells right by my ear. She calls out to someone just behind me. November bells, best price on the island. Sometimes she reminds me a lot of her sister Elizabeth, and not in a favourable way. Then she says to me, well, it's all talk, isn't it? They say Kendrick wanted to buy the stallion and Malvern said no, so he quit. I think of how Sean folded low over the red stallion, riding bareback on top of the cliffs, of the easy way they had with each other when I met him to look at the Ushka mare. I think even of the way Sean looked when he stood on the bloody festival rock and said his name and then Carr's, like it was just fact, one after the other. Of the way he said the sky and the sand and the sea and Carr to me. And I feel a bit of unfairness because in everything but name it seems to me that Sean Kendrick already owns Carr. So what are they doing with him? How should I know? I just saw them parading past and Mutt Malvern looking like it's his birthday. Now my sense of injustice is truly ringing. I abruptly change my plans from going to the cliff to watch from above to going down the cliff path to find out what's happening on the beach. I'm going down there. Don't talk to Malvern's son, Dory Maud warns. I'm already heading away, but I glance back over my shoulder. Why not? Because he might talk back. I hurry down the cliff path past the rest of the tents as the path descends steeply. The vendors can no longer get their tables to sit evenly, so it grows more quiet. And there, down below, is the red stallion surrounded by 4 men. I recognise the square form of Mutt Malvern and the man holding the lead, David Prince, because he used to work Hammond's farm near us, but none of the others. There's a loose circle of people gathered around them as well, watching and laughing and shouting. Mutt shouts something back to them. Carr lifts his head, jerking the arm of the man who holds him, and calls to the sea, high and pure. Mutt laughs. Having some problems holding him, Prince? I'll hold him, shouts someone from the gathered group, and there's more laughter. I imagine Dove taken from me in this way, and anger churns in my stomach. I know that Sean must be here, somewhere. It takes me a moment to spot him, but by now I know how. Look for the place with no movement, for the person who's just a little part away from the rest. Sure enough, there he is, standing with his back to the cliff, an arm across his stomach, his other elbow resting on it. His knuckles pushed tightly against his lips, but his face is expressionless. There's something terrible about the way he stands there, watching. He's not so much still as frozen. Farther down the beach, Corr keens again, and Mutt loops a scarlet ribbon tied with bells around Corr's pastern just above his hoof. At the sound of them, the red stallion flinches, as if the bells are physically painful, and I find myself unexpectedly blinking away tears. Sean Kendrick turns his face away. There's something so wretched in that I can't just leave him there by himself. I elbow my way through the tourists and the locals who are watching this spectacle. My heart thuds in my chest. I think of Sean telling me, keep your pony off this beach. It's possible I'm the last person he wants to see. I stand next to him with my arms crossed. We don't speak. I'm glad that he doesn't look up because Mutt has put a saddle on Carr. Now they're draping a breastplate with nails and bells sewn into it over Corr's withers. The stallion's skin shivers wherever the iron touches him. After a moment, Sean says in a low voice, still looking at the ground, "Where is your horse?" "I worked her last night after the rain stopped." "Where's yours?" He swallows. "How can they do this?" I demand. Corr makes a strange, frenzied sound, like half a whinny, a sound cut off before it began. He stands still, but he jerks his head as if trying to rid himself of a fly. "I reckon," Sean says in that same low voice, "that it's wise of you to ride your own horse, Puck, even if she's just an island pony. Better that your heart's your own." Mutt Malvern says, "I thought he'd be bigger." He's climbed on to Corr, though Prince still holds the lead rope. One of the other men stands between Corr and the sea, his arms held out on either side like a fence. Mutt swings his legs and looks at the ground as if he's a child on a pony. "This is Mutt Malvern's gift to me," Sean says, and there's enough bitter in his words for me to taste it with him. This is my fault. I try to think of what I can say to comfort him. I don't even know if he wants it. I don't know if I'd want to be comforted, if I'm being honest. If I'm being forced to eat soot, I want to know that somewhere else in the world someone else has to eat soot as well. I want to know that soot tastes terrible. I don't want to be told that soot's good for my digestion. And of course, by soot, I mean beans. "Probably it is," I reply, "but in 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, Mutt Malvern will get bored of this, and then he will be back on that wretched black and white creature that he's put on the butcher's board by his name, and I think the piebald's quite enough of a punishment for anyone." Sean looks at me then, his eyes bright, in a way that makes me feel out of sorts. I glare back. "Where did you say your horse was again?" "Home. Trained yesterday evening. What did you say you quit again?" He looked away with a rueful snort. "It was a gamble, like you and your pony." "Horse. Right." Sean looks back at Corr. "Why did you say you were racing again?" I hadn't said, of course. It goes against everything in me to confess the true reasons behind my decision. I can imagine it being chatted all over Scarmouth, as easily as Dory Maud told me how Sean Kendrick had quit over Corr. I haven't told Peg Grattan, even though it seems like she is on my side, nor Dory Maud, and Dory Maud is nearly family. But I hear myself say, "We'll lose my parents' house if I don't win." I realise then how foolish it is to say it, not because I think Sean Kendrick will gossip, but because he'll know now that I hope not only to race, but to make money at it. And that's a terribly fanciful thing to be saying to Sean Kendrick, 4-time winner of the Scorpio Races. He's quiet for a long moment, his eyes on Corr and Mutt on his back. "That's a good reason to gamble," he says, and I feel incredibly warm toward him for saying that, instead of telling me that I'm a fool. I exhale. "So was yours." "Do you think so?" "He's yours no matter what the law says. I think Benjamin Malvern's jealous of it, and," I add, "I think he likes to play games with people." Sean looks at me in that sharp way of his. I don't think he realises how it impales people. "You know a lot about him." "I know that Benjamin Malvern likes to drink his tea with butter and salt in it, and that his nose is big enough to hide acorns in. I know that he wants to be entertained, but that few things manage it. But I don't know if that means that I know him." "Enough," I reply. "I'm not," he says, "fond of games." We both look back to Corr, who has, against everything I would have thought, settled down. He stands perfectly still, looking over the crowd, his ears pricked. Every so often he quivers, but otherwise he doesn't move. "Should I see how fast he is?" Mutt says. He turns in the saddle to eye Sean, who doesn't flinch. David Prince, still holding the lead, has an odd expression as he glances over to us. A bit guilty, a bit apologetic, a bit thrilled. "Oh, Sean Kendrick," Prince says, as if either we or he has just appeared on the beach. "Any advice?" "Don't forget about the sea," Sean says. Mutt and Prince exchange a laugh at this. "Look how tame he is," Mutt tells Sean, and surely Corr's ears are pricked and interested. He sniffs at his saddle and at Mutt's leg as if surprised only that it's not his usual, as if it's a curious turn of events. The bells on his bridle shrill almost inaudibly with the movement. None of Sean Kendrick's much touted brand of witchcraft needed. Does it bother you that he's so faithless? Sean doesn't reply. Mutt's eyes swipe over me dismissively. I don't think I've ever seen someone take so much pleasure in making someone else miserable. I remember that first night when I saw them both outside the pub, the hatred that lurked in both of their expressions. There's nothing hidden about it now. It's an ugly sore. Mutt addresses the crowd. Tourists, most of them. "What do you think? I'm about to take the fastest horse on the island out for a gallop. He's a legend, right? A hero, a national treasure. Who doesn't know his name?" They clap and hoot. Sean is immobile, a piece of the cliffs. "I know it," I shout then, and my voice is so loud that it surprises me. Mutt's gaze finds me next to Sean. I call, "But what's yours again?" I give him my most horrible smile, the one that I learned from having 2 brothers. As I watch Mutt's face light up with anger and listen to the murmur of amusement from the onlookers, I remember, too late, Dory Maud's advice. "Where's your pony then?" Mutt snaps back. "Ploughing fields." I'm more embarrassed by the attention than by the insults, probably because when I'm done down here I'll be back in Dory Maud's booth selling baubles to tourists. It occurs to me that Mutt Malvern doesn't know me well enough to say something to properly hurt me. It's not me that Mutt wants to hurt anyway. He calls, "I have to say I'm pleased for you, Kendrick. Is she a better ride than you're used to?" He pretends to caress Cor's rump. I feel my cheeks go hot. Sean's face doesn't change and I wonder at it. Is it practice? Is it that he's heard all these things too many times for them to prick his skin? Beneath Mutt, Corr moves restlessly. He pushes his nose toward Prince, nuzzling into his chest. Prince scratches his forehead and pushes back. "Steady, old lad," he says. Prince tilts his head back to face Mutt. "Are you taking him out then, before the tide gets up on us?" As he speaks, Corr presses again, more insistently so that the bells ring, and Prince pushes back. "Yeah, indeed," Mutt replies. He wiggles one of the reins to get Cor's attention. Corr still nuzzles and pushes at Prince. I see the shudder of Cor's skin beneath the iron-bound breastplate they've put on him. "Okay now," Prince says. Cor's muzzle is at his collarbone, like Dove does when I scratch her mane and she's feeling fond. Prince lays his hand flat on Cor's cheek as Cor's breath woofs against Prince's neck. Sean's feet kick up sand even as she shouts, "David!" Prince looks up. Quick as a snake, Cor's flat teeth crush into his neck. Mutt Malvern hauls back on the reins. Corr climbs into a rear. The crowd shouts and scatters. The other two men who were with Mutt leap back, uncertain if they should defend themselves or help Mutt. Sean jerks to a stop, face turned from the spraying sand. On the ground, Prince arches his back, his feet scrabbling. I can't look away. Corr rears again, and this time Mutt can't keep his hold. He rolls out of the reach of Cor's hooves and comes up bloody. Prince's blood, not his. The stallion's eyes are white and rolling as he spins. His gaze is on the surf. Everyone else's gaze is on him and Sean, but none of them is moving. When Corr circles another time, I dart across the sand to where Prince lies. I can't tell how badly he's hurt. There's too much blood to see his skin. I'm afraid that Corr will trample him, but I don't know if I can move him. The best I can do is stand between him and the hooves and try to press down this horror inside me. Corr turns and cries out again. This time it's like a choked sob. There's a spiderweb of veins standing out on his shoulder. "Corr," Sean says. He doesn't shout it. It doesn't seem loud enough to be heard above the sound of the hoofbeats in the surf or the sound of Prince's gagging, but the red stallion stills. Sean holds his arms out and approaches slowly. There's blood on Corr's lower jaw. His lips quiver. His ears are flat back against his head. "Hold on," I whisper to Prince. Up close, he's not as young as I thought. I can see every line carved around his eyes and mouth. I don't know if he can hear me. He holds fistfuls of sand and his eyes on me are a terrible, terrible thing. I don't want to touch him, but I reach down. When he feels my fingers, he clutches my hand so hard that it hurts. Near Corr, Sean shoulders off his jacket and abandons it on the sand, then tugs his shirt off over his head. Underneath, he's pale and scarred. I've never given much thought to whether broken ribs healed straight before now. Sean speaks to Corr in a low, low voice. Corr shakes, his eyes rolling toward the ocean. Prince's blood is all over me. I've never seen so much blood before. This is how my parents died. I tell myself not to imagine it, but it doesn't matter. I can't picture it. There's just no way to make my mind accept the possibility of it, and I'm sorry that I can't, because as terrible as imagining that might be, it has to be better than living in this current reality with Prince's shaking hand gripping mine. Sean slowly approaches Corr, speaking in the same low voice all the way. He's 3 steps away. 2. 1. Corr lifts his head, pulling back, his teeth bared and bloody. He's shaking as much as Prince. Sean balls up his shirt and then presses it to Corr's muzzle. He waits a long moment until Corr smells nothing but Sean Kendrick, and then Sean wipes the blood from Corr's mouth. As the stallion stands, rigid, Sean folds the shirt so that the blood faces the sky, then wraps the fabric over Corr's nostrils and eyes. "Daily," Sean says. Beside him, Corr's nostrils suck the fabric of his shirt against them, showing the outline of his muzzle through the shirt, and then blow it back out again. One of the men who'd come with Mutt jerks at his name. He looks terrified. Sean's eyes flit away, disappointed by whatever he sees in Daly's face. And then they find me. Puck. I don't want to leave Prince as long as he's holding my hand so tightly, but then I realize that somewhere along the way it switched to me holding his hand, and not the other way around. Horrified, I drop his fingers with a start and climb to my feet. Sean gestures to the reins that trail from Corr's bridle. "Hold this. Will you hold this? I need..." The red stallion quivers beneath the mask Sean's made. I can't seem to feel afraid. It's like my fear has fled somewhere deep inside me. Someone needs to hold the horse. I can hold the horse. I wipe my bloody palm on my pants and step forward. Taking a deep breath, I hold out my hand. Sean puts the reins and a bunch of fabric in my fist, whether or not I'm ready. This close, I hear a faint metallic humming, and I realize that it's the bells around Corr's bridle and pasterns. The stallion shakes so subtly and constantly that the metal balls inside the bells whir like metal grasshoppers. Sean checks my grip, and then, swift and certain, he crouches and slides beneath the red stallion. He produces a knife from his pocket and runs his palm down Corr's foreleg. I'm here, he says, and Corr's ear trembles and turns to catch his voice. Sean deftly slices off each of the red ribbons, casting them angrily behind him with a tinny jangle. I start as the stallion moves. Now that his hooves are free of the bells, he picks up and puts down his legs, trotting without moving. Sean exhales sharply. He's trying to unfasten the breastplate, and Corr's moving too much. I'm not sure how handling a killer kabelushka is any different from handling Dove, so I just react the same way. I pop the reins down smartly, and the stallion jerks his head up. I think he's trembling less, but it's hard to tell without the bells singing to tell me. I try not to think about how it's Prince's blood still wetting my palm. I try to remember what I've seen Sean doing with the horses. Shh, shh, I say to the stallion, like the ocean, and his ears instantly prick toward me, his tail hanging motionless for the first time. I'm not entirely sure I like his attention, even blindfolded. Sean looks at me over Corr's withers, his expression odd. Approving? For just a moment, then he throws the iron breastplate behind him into the sand by the bells. I'll take him now. What about that man? Prince? I ask, not releasing the reins until I'm sure that Sean has them. He's dead. I glance over. Now that Sean and I have calmed Corr, someone from the crowd has pulled Prince to safety, but they've put a jacket over his face. I shudder in the wind. He died? I know it's stupid to say it, but I can't not say it. He was dead before. He knew it. Didn't you see it in his eyes? My jacket. Your jacket? I say with enough force that my shaky voice makes Corr start. How about my jacket, please? Sean Kendrick looks at me, perplexed, and I can see that he hasn't a clue of why I'm upset with him, why I'm upset at all. I can't stop shaking, as if I've taken all of Corr's trembling and made it my own. That's what I said, he says after a pause. No, it's not. What did I say? You said my jacket. Sean looks a little bewildered now. That's what I said. I make an angry noise and go get his jacket. If there was any chance that the tide wouldn't take it before he got back down here, I'd have left it. All I can think about is that that man is dead, the man who was just holding my hand, and the more I think about it, the angrier I get, although I can't think of who to blame except this kabelushka that I just agreed to hold, and somehow that makes me feel like I'm complicit, and that makes me angrier still. His jacket is absolutely filthy, caked with dried sand and blood and stiff with salt water on top of it all. It's like a piece of canvas sail. I was just going to drape it over Sean's bare arm, but without his shirt to soften it, it would chafe. I'll bring it to you, I tell him. I'll wash it with my horse blanket. Where do I bring it? The Malvern yard, he says, for now. I look back to Prince. There he is, stretched out, and someone's gone to get Dr. Halsell to declare him well and truly dead. The men chat quietly next to his body as if lowered voices show their respect. But I can catch snatches of their conversation, and they're talking about race odds. Thanks, Sean says. What? But I've already realised what he's said, my brain catching up to real time. He sees the realisation in my face and nods shortly. Pulling Corr's head down, Sean whispers to him, and then he puts his hand to the red stallion's side. The stallion starts as if Sean's palm is fiery, but he doesn't lash out, and Sean leads him away from the beach and back toward the cliffs. He stops only once, an arm's length from Mutt. From here he looks wiry and pale without his shirt on, just a boy with a blood-red horse. Mr. Malvern, he says, would you like to take your horse to the yard? Mutt just stares at him. As Sean leads Corr away from the beach, I crumple and uncrumple his jacket in my hands. I can't quite make myself believe the truth of it. That 10 minutes ago I held a dead man's hand, that days from now I will put myself on a beach with a few dozen kabelushka, that I told Sean Kendrick I'd clean his jacket for him. Bit of a bollocks. I turn. It's Daly. Excuse me? I say. Bollocks, Daly says, that helpless swearing that comes from needing something better to say but not having it on hand. The whole island is. I don't reply. I don't have anything to say. I hold Sean's jacket tightly to still my shaking hands. I want to go home, Daly tells me, voice miserable. No game's worth this. Chapter 43. Sean. Benjamin Malvern wants to meet me at the hotel in Scarmouth. That's a game itself somehow, because these days the Scarmouth Hotel will churn with people, every room filled with tourists for the races. While the Butcher's is a local hub for betting and news, a place where the riders know to come for talk, the hotel is where the mainlanders compare notes and talk about the day's training, scratch their heads and wonder if this mare or that stallion will calm down enough to be a contender in the race. For me to stand in the hotel lobby where Malvern arranged for us to meet is for me to be gobbled up. So I step into the hotel, out of the cold, but I slide through the lobby as quickly as I can and find a stairwell to wait in. It looks like it leads upward to only a few of the guest rooms, so the odds of being bothered are slight. I rub my arms, it's draughty, and peer upward through the stairs. The hotel is the grandest building on the island, everything about it designed to make someone from the mainland feel at home. So the architecture inside is painted columns and civilized wooden arches, cornices and polished wood. A Persian rug cushions my feet. On the wall adjacent to me is a painting of a thoroughbred posing in a bridle, standing before a halcyon landscape. Everything about the hotel says that those who stay here are gentlemen and scholars, cultured and safe. I steal a glance into the lobby looking for Malvern. Knots of race tourists stand in twos and threes, smoking and discussing the training. The room is full of their foreign broad accents. From a room off the lobby a piano plays. The minutes move sluggishly. It's a strange neverland right now between the festival and the races. The most die-hard of race enthusiasts arrive for the Scorpio festival, but Scarmouth isn't large enough to entertain them long. There's nothing for them to do until the races but watch us live and die down on the sand. I retreat back into the stairwell and cross my arms against the draught. My thoughts won't be contained, and they run out again to the memories of the image of Mutt Malvern on Corr, of the sound of Corr's cry, of the curl of afternoon red hair on Puck Connolly's cheek. This feels like dangerous ground. I hear the stairs above me creak as footsteps descend. I look just in time to see George Holly trotting brightly down the stairs like a boy. When he catches sight of me, he checks himself sharply and ducks against the wall as if it were his destination all along. "Hello, and hello," George Holly says to me. He looks like he hasn't slept, like the storm cast him up on the shore and left him to choose land or sea for himself. It's an odd thought, as I can't think of what George Holly does with himself when he's not watching the horses. Something loud and enthusiastic, no doubt. Anything that can be accomplished in a white sweater. It's strange how I've come to feel friendship with someone so different from myself. I nod. Holly says, "Right, and always the nod. So you're waiting on Malvern then?" I'm not surprised that he knows. News of my quitting took only a moment to spread across the island like a cough, and I'm sure that whispers of Corr's violent mourning took even less. I nod again. "And of course he's meeting you in this stairwell." I glance out into the main room again. I realise that I'm at once patient for Malvern to come and say his piece, and hoping that he'll be late so I can delay hearing what he has to say. I ball my fists up in my armpits, but this cold inside me is nerves, not temperature. "What you want is a jacket," Holly says, observing my posture. I have a jacket. Blue one. Holly ruminates on this for a moment. "I remember it now. Thin as a dead child?" "That's the one. In Puck Connolly's custody. That might be the last I see of that jacket." "Did you ever wonder," Holly says, after a pause. "No, perhaps you don't. Perhaps you know. If anyone knows, you do. I've been wondering as I've been here why it is that Thisbe has the Kobelushka and no one else does." "Because we love them." "Sean Kendrick, you're an old man. Do you smoke?" "Me neither. We might as well with the air in here. Have you ever seen so many men doing nothing so busily? Is that your final answer, by the way?" I shrug and reply, "This island's had horses for as long as it's had men on it. On the other side of Thisbe there's a cliff cave with a red stallion drawn on the wall. Ancient. How long do you have to be in a place before it's your home? This is their home on land." I'd found the drawing once while looking to catch a cobble. At low tide the cave led so far into the island that it felt I'd come out the other side if I pressed much farther. Then, all at once, the tide had roared in so fast and sudden I'd been trapped. I'd spent hours braced on a tiny dark ledge, each push of the surf soaking me again. Below me I'd heard the low shrills and clucks of a water horse somewhere in the cave. To keep myself from falling, I'd eventually rolled onto my back on the ledge, and there, high above me where the water couldn't reach, the drawing. A stallion brighter than Corr, painted in a red that had only faded a little, the pigment out of reach of the sun. There was a dead man at his feet, too, in the drawing, a dash of black for his hair, a line of red for his chest. The Scorpio Sea has thrown Kabelushka onto our shore since long before my father or my father's father was born. Were they always revered? Never eaten? My expression is withering. Would you eat a shark? In California we do. Well, that's why California doesn't have Kabelushka. I pause for him to finish laughing and add, You have lipstick on your collar? It's from the horses, Holly says, but he tries to catch a glimpse. He finds the edge of it and rubs his fingers over the mark. She's blind. She was blind. She was aiming for my ear. It explains his rumpet look in any case. I lean again to look into the lobby. There are more men than before, piling in as the afternoon gets elderly and the shadows get cold inside. Benjamin Malvern isn't yet among them. Holly asks, Do you know what he'll say? You're so calm. I say, I'm sick over it. You don't look it. Corr can hold 1,000 things in his heart and reveal only one of them on his face, like he did earlier today. He is so very like me. I let myself for one brief moment consider what Malvern may want to meet about. The thought stings inside me, a cold needle. Now you do, says Holly. Frowning, I look again, and this time I see Benjamin Malvern stepping into the lobby, closing the door behind him. He has his hands in the pocket of his greatcoat, and he strides into the lobby as if he owns it. Perhaps he does. He looks like a prize fighter, the slope of his shoulders in the coat, the forward jut of his neck. I hadn't seen any of Benjamin Malvern in Mutt before, but I finally see the resemblance. Holly follows my gaze. I'd better go. He won't be happy to see me. Can't imagine Benjamin Malvern being displeased to see one of his buyers, or at least I cannot imagine him revealing that he was displeased to see one of them. We quarrelled, Holly says. It's a smaller island than I imagined. But don't worry, my dollar bills mean that our friendship will endure. We part ways, Holly creeping toward the sound of the piano and me stepping into the lobby. I know the exact moment I am recognised, as everyone looks away so discreetly that it's obvious they were just looking the second before. It takes me a moment to spot Malvern in the crowd, but then I see him speaking to Colin Calvert, one of the race officials. Calvert's kinder than Eaton, the anachronistic bully who Puck had to knock heads with, but he wouldn't have been at the festival. His wife's the brand of Christian that forbids a gathering that involves young women dancing in the streets, but not races where men die. Calvert sees me and nods, and I return it, though my mind is already on the conversation ahead. Malvern approaches me slowly, like I'm not the destination. Well, Sean Kendrick, Malvern says. I want Corr. I can't say anything. Malvern thumbs one of his ears and looks at a painting of 2 tidy thoroughbred racers over the great fireplace. You're a poor conversationalist, and I'm a poor loser, so let's put it at this. If you win, I'll sell him to you. If you don't win, I never want to hear about this again. And the sun's come out over the ocean. I realise now that I didn't think that it would. 4 times I've won. I can do it again. We can do it again. I see the beach before me, the horses around me, the surf under Corr's hooves, and at the end of it, there's freedom. How much? I ask. 300. His face is sly. My salary is 150 in a year, and he's the one paying it, so he knows it to the penny. Winning years I get 8% of the purse. I've saved what I can. Mr. Malvern, I say, do you want me back, or do we still play a game? Want and need are 2 different things, Malvern says. 290. Mr. Holly has offered me a job. Malvern looks pained, though I'm not certain if it's at the idea of losing me or at the mention of Holly's name. 250. I cross my arms. 250 is unattainable. Who else will touch him after today? They've all killed someone. Not all of them have killed someone with your son on their back. His expression is cut glass. Tell me a price. 200. This is dear, but doable, only just. Only if I can count this year's unwon purse as part of my savings. This is where I walk away, Mr. Kendrick. But he doesn't. I stand and I wait. I realise that the hotel lobby has gone quiet. I realise that this is the reason why we aren't meeting in the tea shop or the stables or his office. Here it's the best advertising Malvern can get. His name will be on everyone's lips. Malvern exhales. 200. Enjoy your races, gentlemen. He pushes his hands in his pockets and walks away. Calvert opens the door for him, letting in a shaft of brilliantly red afternoon light. I have to win. Thank you for joining us for chapter 40 through 43. Make sure that you check the description box at the bottom of the video for your discussion questions for this section, and we'll see you next time.